Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I think I'm actually going to have to put the other big light on in the corner because there we are. There, that's much better. So, you may have been caught awares, if you will, that for the last month, pretty much all throughout the month of July, about actually halfway through, somewhere about like that, I started uploading videos in which I did these oblique, upper, and V-cut workouts, and I frequently spend quite a lot of my time actually recording my current weight, and from more from the last thing when I go to bed and for the first thing when I get up in the morning. It's a very there is a point to be made out of all this and out of what has happened. And the haircut, by the way, was just sort of somebody did something by accident, and to be honest, they kind of made it out that it was my fault. I've no idea why it was. I mean, does that look like a 2 to you? No, that looks like more like a 1 than a 2. You know what I mean? You tell me they can't tell the difference between 2 and 1. Anyway, that's besides that. So, and I've mentioned this before, but the reason why I did all this is because I had my first actual premeditated interview with the British Army earlier today on HMS Calliope. And so far, here's I'm gonna just go over very, very briefly about what happened. The meeting was at 9:30 this morning. It lasted roughly 15 minutes, and because I wasn't going to tell the British Army anything it didn't already know or anything it needed to. Basically, I just was just very upfront with them, and I would describe it as even though they said it wasn't a formal meeting, anything like that, I just keep it brief and blunt. And I think it's the sort of thing that probably suited them as well. It was just a matter of get straight to the point and let's see what we can do about it. So here's the biggest takeaways I got away from this. And it's very, very simply, I have to lose weight. And how much weight do I have to lose? Well, because when they took my height and they weighed me this morning, they weighed me. The only thing I had to have or be fully clothed with what I had on. The only thing I wasn't allowed to put on was everything I had in my pockets, which included my wallet, phone, earphones, and a half bit of extra gum. So took all those out. Weighed myself fully clothed, just tipped the scales at 16 stone, aka 100 kilos. Now, from what I got told by the interviewee, he's served with the infantry for 20 years. He told me in order to sort of get to where I was wanting to go, I would have to lose at the very least 15 kilos. I've got to drop down to, well, assuming I go back and I get weighed and it's also fully clothed as I did before, I have to somehow drop from 100 kilos all the way down to let's call it 80 actually, no, actually, tell you what, let's call it 85 kilos. That's so how much is that? About what, 33 pounds? And here's exactly how I have interpreted this, because it's one thing to be told, to be given a very specific instruction. It's also quite another that I've actually added a little bit extra to this. I don't know how well this would ever go down with the British Army, but let's hear me out with this. Consider this my first major assignment. Maybe I should consider this absolutely not to demonstrate my ability to try, but also my ability to breed results, that I'm actually wanting to push myself to a very hard and very specific, rigorous standard. Because I'm not applying for the infantry. I'm not applying for the Grenadier Guards. I'm not applying even as just as a mechanic or somebody to like clean out a tank, or even to be on tank command, because I'm not going for any of those things. What I'm going for is to be a paratrooper. A big undertaking. And I didn't just pick it because it was the hardest or the one that seemed to be the most physically demanding, but it was also because there's loads of other benefits and perks and the things I kind of like idolized about the paras, which among many other things is knowing how to cope when you're under extreme pressure. Maybe there's a part of it that seems to me says to me, you know what, there is something to be done about being able to push myself to not only the limit but over the limit. That just when I think I can't take any more, I find out that actually it's relatively easy to do, and there is no like end point of things that I won't be able to take. Maybe that's how I see it, but before we even go any further than that, what I'm interpreting right now is very simply my first major assignment to show that I actually have what it takes to even get to the medical stage of my application for the paras is to get down to 85 kilos by the end of August. A big undertaking. It means losing just over a pound a day. How am I going to do that? Well, I think it's pretty obvious how it's gonna come about. It's basically a hard stop in terms of dieting. Or I have to actually go to a 5 a day basis diet. Actually incorporate some like 1 meat and 3 veg or something like that for my dinners, and basically drink plenty of water whenever I'm not exercising or working or editing or shooting videos or anything like that. Basically, I have got to stay active, I have got to stay alert, and even as it's currently 8:30 at night and I've been up since 6:30 in the morning, but you know what? Make the most out of your day, because I'm getting out of this bad habit of like lying in until at least 9 o'clock, maybe even as late as 10 in the morning. And this is even when I was still in work, like even when I was working down there, the casino 2 years ago. These bad habits have got to stop being broken, and they've got to stop being broken very, very soon. Meanwhile, I might actually have a bit more of a full-time job up and coming by working as a kitchen porter in this country hotel quite deep into the country. It might make the idea of like driving back and forth, like even in the early parts of the morning, because sometimes it's as early as 7 o'clock to start. However, it's the closest I've got to actually start getting my life once again back on track. 4 months ago is when it began, when I just managed to get a 0 hours contract. Now 4 months later, we're sort of moving up a bit. And sooner, and maybe 4 months down the line, guys, when 2026 begins, because we are now starting to enter the end game for this year, and it's ending quite a lot sooner than I thought. Well, here we are. This is where we got to start. Now, with all those qualifiers in place, once I came home from all of this exciting day out, it was already 4:30 by the time I came in, and I slept for about an hour because, well, it's kind of the reason why I'm not doing any exercises today, because my joints and just parts of my body just kind of feel sore. Like my face feels like quite sore, like especially around the eye sockets and around the nose, and even like under the ear, and even parts of my neck feel strangely off kilter. But anyway, with that being said, this is it. You may remember a couple of months ago, I specifically said, as part of Operation Goliath Bird Eater, that I'm not going to pull my finger out, but rather to stop and give up. Don't fight it, accept it, especially if you don't want to change. Because trust me, guys, this is when the change is coming in. It's happening right now. So that means one thing and one thing only, and that's preparing to work bloody hard. You think with the way things have gone earlier this year, whether things were my fault or, you know, things weren't my fault, and there are people who need to answer and stuff like that who I'm probably never going to get an answer to for as long as I live. Do I really feel as if like I actually have the mettle to consider myself ready for what's about to lie ahead? And is it really important for me to actually aspire to do something and to be the best? Or even as things are, and there may still be things that are far beyond my control and far beyond my rationale, is it still more important just to stay exactly the way I am? Work? No, I definitely want to work. And so therefore, the only option at this point is to go right back to basics. And we have the whole of August to turn this around. We have the whole of August to make a success out of me. We've got the whole of August to go from 10 bellies to down to 9 bellies. I've got the whole of August to possibly change my life for the better. I've got to do, and that's probably also why I had to have like that hour's sleep. It wasn't just physical rest, but the reality of what I'm about to do and what I'm about to undertake. It's actually quite hard to process. But now's the time. And as you've probably heard me say many times before, ladies and gentlemen, there is work to be done. There is always more work.